and God, with her own scars and stretch marks, could look down and smile at me with pride. You are the biggest little girl in the world. Hi, my name is Maddie Mae Modal. I'm a Bible scholar specializing in gender and sexuality in the New Testament, and I like to write and share things on Substack. I like to write things like essays, poetry, and spiritual reflections on life after deconstructing a high-control religion. I'd like to read to you today an example of something that I've written. It's called Big, a reflection on outgrowing the spirituality you inherited. Last night, in the hazy orange sunlight of the Scottish summer evening, my 4-year-old jumped up from the dinner table. She peeled up her stained bluey t-shirt to reveal her stomach. Look at how big I am. Her smile glowed beneath her home-cut fringe as I watched her stomach expand with eager breath. The word big launched at me like shrapnel. I smiled, masking a flinch. You are the biggest little girl in the world, I cheered. She looked at me expectantly. I lifted my own top at the dinner table to reveal a scarred and stretched pouch. That is a big tummy. Her eyes widened as she danced over to trace the stretch marks with delicate fingers. I know, I proclaimed, my mind racing in a vicious cycle of guilt and shame, because the truth is, I have spent my whole life avoiding the word big. As a little girl, I was well acquainted with the adverb too. Too loud, too emotional, too dramatic, too much, too big. But what felt the most confusing is that too means nothing in isolation. There always has to be a referent behind a too statement. Too loud for whom? Too dramatic for where? Too big for what? Since those questions were always left unanswered, I was left to fill them in. One time I went to a dinner with some friends and the host had this blind and deaf dog named Gizmo. That the dog's inability to see or hear forced him to navigate the small living space by walking 2 feet, bumping into something, turning around, and then repeating the process. In navigating these questions, I felt like Gizmo. I would progress in the relationship, bump into the two boundary, adjust, and recalibrate. I learned through painstaking trial and error that little girls aren't supposed to grow up. They're supposed to grow small. As I grew, I was supposed to grow thinner. In my body, my voice, my emotions, my spirituality. I was an oak tree pruned into a bonsai. And all of this pruning was dictated by a God who was supposed to be big. When I was little, I learned a song about God. God is bigger than the boogeyman. He's bigger than Godzilla and the monsters on TV. God is bigger than the boogeyman, and he's looking out for you and me. There's just something about theology as taught by singing vegetables that really makes it stick. But if God was bigger than the boogeyman, was he bigger than me? Because the thing that scared me the most was not the boogeyman or Godzilla, it was bigness itself. I was 18 when I realized that bulimia wouldn't be my preferred variety of eating disorder. I didn't have the stomach for it. I envied my friends with anorexic tendencies. How come they get the kind of eating disorder that makes them smaller? God was surely bigger than them. And then I went to church. My space in the world got even more cramped. A woman's place is in the pew next to her husband, nursery on every fourth Sunday of the month, kitchen before and after the potluck, choir, soprano preferred, and never, ever behind the pulpit. Come to think of it, the woman's big tits and big hormones and big hair might get in the way of big God. And then who would be able to see God's holy, divine, and most importantly, big dick? I looked back on the deconstruction of my faith and I picture an old Southern chapel with green couch cushions, and I see myself pressed up against every wall. Like Alice after sampling the cake in Wonderland, I grew and grew and grew until the little chapel could no longer contain me. I stuck my arm up against a stained glass window, my head bumped up against the baptistry. I could feel a jab in my ribs from the bare wooden cross. Until finally, I was too big for the space I was given. So slowly, I had to tear it down, pew by pew and brick by brick, until I could see the sky. And I could look up through the ancient oak tree pull up my shirt, expand my gut, and say, "Look how big I am."